So my name is Dana, and I met Nancy over 20 years ago in the Petaluma Newcomers group. We were part of the wine tasting group called the Cellar Rats. So we became fast friends as we appreciate each other's sense of humor and our direct, open communication style. Over the years, Nancy has become a big sister to me. We've shared many meals and massages. We've celebrated birthdays and collected Christmas ornaments. We've shared pita melts, fish tacos, and taro salads, and many, many glasses of wine. We've searched for seashells, watched movies, attended concerts, and explored trails. And all along the way, we've shared our confidences and our most intimate feelings. She's been a friend with a capital F. Nancy lived by example, always kind, always thoughtful, always caring. She may have disagreed with my choices, but she was always gentle in her advice. She helped me through some difficult times, and we always found a way to laugh. Excuse me. Nancy met her medical challenges head on, always keeping a positive attitude and sending love to her wayward, misguided selves. She aligned herself with the truth as she believed it and was steady in her alignment with spirit. I loved how she felt so deeply, sitting and crying for a full 15 minutes at the end of Avatar. I loved dressing up with her and Renee as the Supremes for Fred's 50th birthday. I loved the murder mystery dinner that her and Ron had hosted. I loved our time together at Sea Ranch with Betsy, and absolutely loved laughing with her and feeling completely loved. The last words she spoke to me were, "I love you, Dana, and I will cherish that moment forever." I love her so much.
I think it's safe to say no one knows you like your mother. She remembers everything you cannot and has been with you every step of the way and understands you best. I wish I had the time to get to know my mom to the depth with which she knew me. Some things were very clear though. My mother was a fighter, and she spent her life fighting many battles, both for herself and for others. She was an advocate for everyone she cared about, and her caring and generosity will be remembered by all she encountered. She was feisty. There was no crossing man without a fight, and the two of us were well versed, as I'm sure our neighbors could attest, arguing our stubborn points, but I think that's just what you get when you have a mother-daughter Leo duo. Regardless of the arguments, I always respected the strength of my mother's morals and her beliefs. My mother loved life. She always wanted to make the best of any situation. Once I moved home after graduating from college, it was quite obvious who had the better social life. She was constantly attending concerts, movies, plays, art shows, going out for dinner and drinks with friends. She was up for everything and loved to experience new things. My mom loved to dance, a trait she used to embarrass me countless times. But looking back, I love the joy it brought her, and in fact, I think one of the moments she was most fond of in recent years was her participation in a dance mob in San Rafael. She loved the beach. Ever since moving from snowy western New York, my mom had an affinity for sun, sand, and waves. Her favorite place to go around here was Stinson Beach, but she'd be happy with any of them. When my mom bought her house a few years ago, she intended it to be her beach house, and it was soon filled with an adorable collection of seashells, driftwood, sand, and other things that made her happy. She once dragged a 7-foot-long piece of driftwood up the path from Salmon Creek to the car. I really wish I could have seen her do it. Nancy was always optimistic, and I think that's one of the things that makes this so hard. I always believed she could overcome anything. We both continue to put our faith in her determination until the very end. And most importantly, Nancy was an amazing mom. A second mom to many, she not only opened her heart and home to me, but to the majority of my friends and others we encountered along the way. As a child, I begged for a sibling, something that was not going to happen. But to make up for it, my mom became a combination of a sibling, a playmate, and a best friend. One of my favorite childhood memories is constantly playing rock, paper, scissors for the front seat. My mom would exude love. I have never questioned the fact that my mom would have done anything for me, and I hope she knew that I would have done anything for her. The thing I will miss most about her is just being with her. We did everything together, from running errands to going to see plays. It's hard not to feel robbed of being able to continue my life with my best friend by my side. But I have to remind myself that in actuality, we've all been lucky to have her in our lives as long as we did. She fought stage 4 breast cancer once before in our lives and beat it. And I know that there's no way I would be who and where I am today without those extra 12 years of my mother's guidance, support, friendship, and love. To try to imagine moving forward without her is painful, but I know she hasn't abandoned me completely. She will always be with me and gave me the tools I need to continue living a life she would be proud of.
And some people know me as Sis out here. You can choose which you prefer. I'm going to read something just for a couple of moments from another friend of Nancy's who lives in Virginia. She's a friend of ours that goes back many years, and she just wanted us to share some things with you. And to Emily, she writes, "Your mother walked into my life the moment I truly needed a friend. It was like she knew I was this little chickadee in a big city that could use the wisdom and wit of a slightly older bird. We were both East Coast transplants, and I think that bonded us right from the beginning. California was this new, exciting, distant place that we both came to for rest and respite from our families and issues in the East. The moment I met her, my life changed for the better. And I want you to know how much she really meant to me. She opened my world, made me see the silver lining in almost every aspect of my life, and was supportive beyond any capacity I could have ever imagined a friend to be. She blew me away with her confidence, work ethic, and humor. I have always looked up to her because regardless of what was going on with her, she loved every single person that walked into her life and gave them endless joy and positive energy. I always thought that it must be exhausting to be like that, but I know that is who she was, and there are not many people in this world that are as such. Throughout our 40 years of friendship, we have weathered many storms and learned tough life lessons, all the while laughing and loving each other. Oh, that laugh. It was contagious. I will never forget her high-pitched laugh or that little yelp she used to give when something was really, really funny. She was such a bright light that lit up any room when she walked into it, and her smile could turn your bad day into dust under your feet. She made everything right in the world. Love, Wendy." For me, Nancy is my best friend. We met in San Francisco in 1977. And over those years, we endured some bad times, of which she told me a few weeks ago this was the worst. And we passionately shared a lot of good times. We danced at Carnival in Rio de Janeiro, one of my best memories. We partied with friends at beach houses at Stinson. We drank champagne even if it was Monday and for no other reason. And we did it on our wedding day along with Girl Scout cookies. In the more recent years, Em and Nance and I would make dessert for Thanksgiving on Tuesday, and we never waited till Thanksgiving to eat it. And we celebrated our life's greatest joy, our children. As you've heard, Nancy was, and those who really know her, she was a strong, vibrant, fun woman. And as Em talked about it, she was very clear in her beliefs. And she was absolutely driven by the love she had for her daughter. And Em, she is so proud of the person you have become. And your love and caring for her most recently meant everything to her. I am grateful to Sally and Howard, Nancy's parents, for giving us the gift of Nancy. I'm also grateful to those of you who provided support in the last couple of months. The meals, the puzzles, moments in the sun and the sand. I'm also grateful to the men in my life, Sean, Max, and Jake, who have propped me up a lot and made me laugh. I will miss Nance for the rest of my life. A good friend from Hawaii, Karen, sent me a card, and I would like to share the words with you in the hopes that it would help you all celebrate Nancy's life. Let us remember the smiling, the laughing, the talking, the sharing, the caring, and the loving. Let us remember the good times always. Thank you.
Is there anybody else you'd like to share? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Randy. I had the pleasure of knowing Nancy just for the last 10 months through the Qigong community. I met her last April. She was in my small Qi group, so we got to know each other very well, very intimately. There's a little 6-pack of us in there. And one of the other members of the Qi group, his name is Matt, he and Nancy stayed in touch, and he sent something that he said if there was any opportunity to share this, he asked me to please read this, so I thank you for this opportunity. So, he wrote this for Emily. He said, Emily, I met your mom last April at a health-related retreat in Santa Rosa. Her bravery in the face of adversity was inspirational even then, and we cried in each other's arms when saying goodbye. I am certainly not embarrassed to admit that. In September, I returned to the area for another retreat in Petaluma, and though Nancy could not attend, she surprised me on the afternoon of my arrival by driving me to the beach, something I'd not even considered when planning my return. Being an East Coast resident, it was a first chance to dip my toes in the Pacific. On that gloriously warm and sunny day, to sit with your mom on the beach for just an hour or so was really heavenly. And then we enjoyed an evening meal, joined by Randy Lip, that's me, our mentor and friend from April. I knew that Nancy was struggling, yet she still went out of her way to show me a sample of the area's beauty. Randy just notified me of Nancy's passing, and I feel empty, but I especially feel sad for you and her family and close friends. How lucky I was to have known her only briefly. Peace to you and your family.
I didn't put anything eloquent together, but flying into California this morning, I had some quiet time. I have 3 children, and I had some quiet time on the plane to really think about Nancy. I might put these glasses on. I've known the Burkholzer family for 25 years. I met Emily when she was 2, and we lived down the same street together, and I had a chance to watch her on occasion when they would go out to their wine club and book club. So all of you benefited from me. No. But I'm also one of those adoptive kids that Nancy and Ron and Emily took on. So I think Emily has more siblings than she thinks she has. And I just wanted to share a few thoughts that I was thinking about. Nancy was also many things to me as well. She was a friend. We had lots of walks on the beach. We had lots of movies together. Most recently, I spent a week with her in November, and we watched all the Hallmark Christmas movies together. That's her favorite. She would take us to San Francisco. Recently, I brought my daughter down for a girl weekend about 2 years ago, and Emily, Nancy, and I, we spent time in San Francisco. And I wanted my kids to know this wonderful woman. So we made all the opportunities to fly out here and spend time with her. So she's a friend. She was also a second mom to me. My mom was single, raising a lot of kids, and the Burkholzer family took me under their wings. And I don't think Emily knows to what extent, but I've shared a little bit with her. And just an amazing woman that Nancy was. She gave me some of my first driving lessons in her car. She took me to my driving test, and I saw her watching me, and I don't know if she was more concerned about me passing the test or her car, but I passed. And she taught me how to do laundry. My mom would always just throw it in and do it. But Nancy, I'm forever grateful. When I went off to college years ago, I knew how to do laundry because Nancy was very particular about how to do it and what you use and the detergent. Can you relate? She taught me how to like broccoli. I didn't like vegetables, and she showed me that if I put it in the microwave and add a little bit of vegetable seasoning, I love it. And I know these are little things, but isn't it those little things that count? And that when we think about these beautiful people in our lives, that when we go throughout our day-to-day lives, that these people pop into our minds again. And we remember these little things, and they put a smile across our face. One more thing is she taught me how to make cookies. And Emily and I would make cookies together, and she would come around and look at us and check and say, that's not measured perfectly. And she'd want us to scrape it off. I have to be honest and say I still don't scrape it off. But every time I'm making cookies with my own children, I think of Nancy, and I think, oh, she was standing over me. She would tell me to scrape off that, make it a perfect cup. You know, Nancy's kind, loving, fun, patient, a good listener, wise, and honest. You know, you can't wrap it up. There's hundreds of adjectives to describe this woman. She's a good example of being a mom. Her love for her daughter, Emily, is evident. She always put Emily first. And I loved getting the phone calls across the states for her to tell me all about Emily's accomplishments. And we'd celebrate together on the phone. And it's been fun to watch as Emily has grown up. And she's been a good example to me. I've had my own mom, but I have 3 children now. And I often think of Nancy when I'm at home in Arizona. And we're doing things together. And I'm just grateful that my children got to know this wonderful woman. I feel blessed to have known Nancy. I think we all do, and I'm so grateful that she was part of my life. So, thanks.
My name is Rick Palmer, and I was the parent of one of one of Emily's close friends, Joanna. And I'm going to tell you a story about Nancy and I making cement in the Dominican Republic. So Joanna and Emily and Nancy and I were all part of the service project that a CASA teacher did in the DR. And the Dominican Republic is very hot. And we went to a small village that we had to walk and hike to for a period of 2 or 3 days called Los Pinos in the DR. And it was over 100 degrees. The humidity was like 95 degrees. And we were there with about 10 or 12 of the other kids, but not Emily or Joanna, because they separated the parents from their kids on purpose and the chaperoning types of things. So what happened was Nancy and I ended up being the 2 adults, 50-something adults, that actually spent most of the time making cement. And I mean making cement, where you took the rock and the sand and the lime, and you had to throw it with a shovel into a screen so that you could get enough of it. Then once you did that, you had to put it in a bucket with water, and then in this 100-degree heat, before it got hard, you had to put it into these cinder blocks of this house that we were building. Well, her work ethic is beyond anything I've ever seen in any human being. Because in this heat, Nancy would drive me to help make the cement so that I could take the wheelbarrow over to where the cinder blocks were, and then we could actually pour the cement before it got hard into these rebar cinder blocks to help build this house for a poor family. And yes, the students did a lot of work in that project on those very hot days, but I will say they were drinking a lot more water, and Nancy and I were working a lot harder, and the reason I worked so hard was because of Nancy.
Takers?
Nice to have a guy's perspective. Thanks for that. Urged me to get up here too. I've had the great pleasure of knowing Nancy for about 40 years. We worked, for 20 of those years, we worked hand in hand operating Scott's restaurants. When I met her, she was working at the Pierce Street Annex. Some of you my age might remember that joint. And I lured her away to come to work at Scott's. And Janet and the chef and I could run the restaurant, but Nancy ran everything else. She really took care of the business for 20 years. So I saw a lot more of her during those 20 working years than I did of my wife during waking hours. We got very, very close. I remember with Sissy and Karen and Wendy, the Grand Marnier hangovers, the parties, the dance parties. I remember the horrible incident in Sausalito. And then the good times started. She met and was courted by Ron, and then she got pregnant, and that was exciting. And she had Emily, and we kind of watched that relationship grow, and it was really rewarding. But you all know how smart Nancy was, and not only brilliant intellectually, but she had more common sense than I think anyone I've ever known. I never made a decision without seeking her counsel. And she was always right. I was wrong several times. She wouldn't hesitate to point it out when she disagreed with me, which is so valuable to when you have a key employee, you want them to argue with you when it's necessary. But I love the woman. I'm going to miss her terribly. We all know how much she cared. I love her, and she's got a big chunk of my heart. Miss her.
What a beautiful daughter Emily is. What a beautiful lady. My name is Regina. I met Nancy in San Francisco. I'm bringing love from Sherry David, who worked with her at Pierce Street and Scott's and lives in Texas now. She sends her love and wishes she could be here. I share the same spiritual influence as Nancy with Unity, and I want to remind us that her spirit is with us, and she's here loving and watching over you. And I know it's rough to not have a physical presence, but I wanted to remind you, as I think we all need to be reminded and reassured and comforted, that her loving spirit is with you, and every day it'll get slightly easier, and you'll feel her spiritual presence watching over you and keeping you company. And we give thanks for her presence in our lives. And I remember the fun times when Emily was tiny with her with her mom coming into La Barca, and the good times with the Girl Scout cookies. Anyway, good memories, and bless her as she goes on in her next phase.
Nancy, I see how she was someone who could make taxes so much fun. When I saw her last year, let me know. She, at the end of the time we spent together, we had a glass of wine, of course. Then she showed me on YouTube 24 Hours of Happy, this song, so I was playing it on this morning. And that certainly is a song I can play when I want to think about it.
The first song, I never did get a chance to meet Nancy, but through Sherry, I kind of, then through the rest of you, I kind of getting to know her. The first song we did, JT was one of her favorite artists, so that was James Taylor's song. This next one, I'm glad we had this song to bring to you. It was written by a friend of ours named Steve Noonan, who's an old friend and musical associate of Jackson Brown's. He's a wonderful writer. And he wrote this song called Lay Me Down in California for another musician named Kenny Edwards, who passed away some years ago. And it's written from the standpoint as if Kenny were singing it to us, those folks that remained. So you can imagine that this is Nancy singing to you. And then the other remarkable thing to me was her love of the beach, because there's several references in this song. And looking at the sand and the colored glass, it was just wonderful. This is a perfect song for anyone who's a Californian, even if you're transplanted. Maybe you play guitar. It's good for guitar players from California, and also surfers, if you've ever done any surfing. And I'll let Sherry take it from here. Lay Me Down in California. Before I die, take me back to California, so I can smell the ocean in the air. There's a place way out in California where they ride the wave that's always breaking there. If I'm gonna die, let it be in California, 'cause that's where I learned how to grow. And I really want to thank you for being there. Now it's time for you to let me go. We spent some great nights playing. I may have left my mark. You were there every single night. I did the best I could. I hope you found it real and good, and I was blessed to know you for a while. California, where the water meets the mountains and the sky. Set my spirit free in California, and I'll come back to help you by and by. So much work left to be done. Never thought I'd be the one to leave my song so unfinished in the air. But if you let your sadness go, Soon enough you will come to know that we will finish all the work I left there. Time goes ticking by, slip right through your fingers, and you try to hold it long as it will stay. Time don't get to say about how long we live as singers, 'cause our music lives forever and a day. The ocean in the air. There's a place way out in California where they ride the wave that's always breaking there. Where they ride the wave that's always breaking there. That's where I ride the wave that's always breaking there. Ride the wave that's always breaking there. Ride the wave that's always breaking there. Ride the wave.
I've known Nancy for 25 years. Everything everybody said, plus. That's all I got to say about that. I'd like to invite you all to please come and eat. The food's in the dining room over here. Have some more wine, sit around and talk, have memories. Bless all of you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm being reminded. On the desk right here inside the door to the right, there's some little pieces of paper and some pens to write some memories for Emily. If you would take time to write a few things down, it would be great. Thank you.
There's also succulents. She had a ton, so we decided to break them all up for all of you, and they're by the front door.